Hey guys, I'm Kiera and today we will be discussing Inktober. If you don't know what Inktober is, it is a month-long event in October created by Jake Parker to encourage artists to draw more frequently, specifically in ink. I'll leave a link to Jake Parker's official Instagram so you can check him out and learn more about Inktober if you wish. So now that you know the rules, let's go over some tips that will help you execute the seemingly daunting task of completing an ink drawing every day for the month of October. Tip number 1. Don't get caught up in inking supplies. I have seen artists creating beautiful things with just a ballpoint pen. I personally like to use Sakura Pigment Micron pens for lining my work. I suggest these for people who are new to inking because they are very easy to control and come in different sizes so you can get the exact line thickness you want with every stroke. I have also seen more advanced artists use brush pens and get varying line thickness with one stroke. But those pens aren't the easiest to use in my opinion. Use whatever works for you though. If you don't have money to spare, please don't sleep on a ballpoint pen. It can create a lot of interesting line effects if you practice with it for a little bit. I'll personally be using a combination of pigment micron pens and watered down India ink. I love using ink from markers, but I'm not really proficient with liquid ink from a jar. And there's no better way to get better than to practice that medium every day for 31 days. Hopefully, by the end of this, we will see some kind of an improvement. If you aren't used to drawing every day, it could be scary to suddenly take on a task that asks you to do so. I draw every day and I still feel like planning out my Inktober drawings a little. I will be using the official prompt list, which seems fun because it is basically a list of adjectives. It's just vague enough to give me creative freedom, but still guides me so that I don't have this infinite amount of possibilities, which can lead to not being able to focus on completing one drawing every day. Jake Parker's official prompt list is not mandatory. It's just a guide to help you in case you get stuck on what to draw each day. I jotted down a few ideas that came to mind first for each day's prompt word and wrote that in my bullet journal so when the day comes, I can stay on track. If I come up with something better for one day's prompt, then I will just change my drawing when that day comes. Which leads me to the next tip. Don't be so hard on yourself. I can't tell you how many people told me they tried to do Inktober last year, then accidentally missed a day, which discouraged them from doing the rest of Inktober. If you miss a day or two, it's cool. Pick back up when you can. Others have told me they were discouraged from doing Inktober because the thought that creating art with only ink scares them. It's okay to use whatever medium you're comfortable with. I'm not gonna police you. And it's okay to start with a pencil sketch underneath your ink drawings, you guys. Jake Parker starts with a pencil sketch. As long as you finish with the ink, you're fine. The challenge of not being able to delete, erase, or paint over a permanent line is still there. Trust me, I have ruined many sketches when going into the inking phase. Don't let that discourage you though. Making mistakes is how you learn and will only help you get better, which is one of the main reasons Inktober was invented to begin with. If you do decide to start with a pencil, please, for the sake of both our sanities, draw lightly. A lot of pencils are waxy, which can resist ink, making the ink skip when you try to draw over it. Also, if you sketch too darkly, you won't be able to completely erase some pencil lines, which will show up in the finished ink phase. This can be frustrating and take away the fun from inking. Don't do this to yourself, boo. I try to draw lightly and slightly erase a few lines before inking to avoid both of these problems. While you're in the sketching phase, let me warn you now before it's too late to be mindful of your composition. The layout of a piece is important in telling a story and forcing your audience to look exactly where you want them to. Also, make sure you know how big you want your piece to be. If you're new to doing Inktober, a large piece of paper such as an 8 by 11 may be hard for you to complete every day. I suggest something smaller so you won't have to worry about filling a big piece every single day. Once you do start to lay down the ink from the left side of the paper to the right. This will help prevent smudging as your hand is not resting on an area where you just inked. Of course, if you are left-handed, you'll want to ink from right to left. Also, I've seen some artists slip a piece of paper under their drawing hands to prevent smudging, but for some reason that just feels weird for me. Don't ask me why, because I really don't know. I can't. If that works for you though, then do it up. My next tip is optional, but I believe it's crucial for my own art, so I'll give you this tip for you to decide if you want to incorporate it into your own art or not. That tip is to be mindful of your line weight. I love varying the thickness of my line. Some say it's subtle, but I think it makes a difference in my art. I like to thicken my lines where they touch so there isn't a boring cross section there. I also thicken lines where shading might be, such as under the chin. You know there's usually shading where the neck meets the chin, so that's where I might thicken my lines. Hair and eyelashes usually have the thinnest lines. Also, my character may have a bolder line around them to make them stand out, whereas the background may have a further line to push it back further. The farther I want an object to be in the background, the thinner the line it will be. You do not have to do this. I have seen plenty artists use the same line thickness for their entire piece, and it looks so good for their style. Do what makes you happy, but I love me some varying line weight. If backgrounds aren't your thing, then don't feel forced to do one every single day for 31 days unless you're up for the challenge. I myself am going to focus on designing a cool character every day, but if I have some spare time, I will be sure to add some type of background. And I suggest the same for everyone who is new for Inktober. If this is your first time doing Inktober and you want to take on that challenge of putting a character in a background, kudos to you, but also just know your limitations. If you have the time for it, do it. But if you know this might be something you're going to struggle with, then maybe save that for another challenge. Or just go for it anyways and see if you can do it. I'm not going to discourage you guys. But, you might want to just keep that in the back of your mind. I have used color ink the previous Inktovers, but this year I want to keep my drawings grayscale because I know I use colors as a crutch. If you haven't done a monochromatic piece before, doing one for 31 days may seem daunting. Try to make sure you give different tones of gray if you're going the traditional route of Inktober, and add layers with different patterns to give your art texture and interest. Use the monochromatic scheme to your benefit by using the lightest tone for your background, pushing the background back, and begin to build the tone darker as you come closer to your focal point. In my case, it will be my characters. This technique will help them stand out. Last but not least, use white ink to bring in highlights. This is something I always do with my art. Y'all know how I feel about my Sakura Jelly Rolls. Use white ink to highlight certain areas or even clean areas up where the ink bled where you didn't want it to. I hope these tips helped you. I know I kind of made this video as a reminder for myself. Like, honestly, I'm preaching to myself right now. Make sure you're not putting so much pressure on yourself and just have fun. If you found this video helpful, please like and share with someone you think may also find it helpful. Make sure you're subscribed so you can see what I do for Inktober, and feel free to tag me in your Inktober drawings on Instagram so I can share some love with some of you. Alright, you guys, that's it. I love you. Bye.